Everything you wanted to know about the invulnerable SR-71 Blackbird. With a maximum velocity of 3,216.4 feet per second, the SR-71 Blackbird was faster than a bullet fired from the M1 Garand rifles of World War II times, which had a maximum velocity of 2,800 feet per second. The SR-71 was so fast that not only was it impossible for an aircraft to catch it, but it could also escape missile attacks. In this video, we'll discuss how invulnerable Lockheed Martin's SR-71 Blackbird actually was. Lockheed Martin's SR-71, one of the most well-known aircraft to come out of the infamous aircraft manufacturing company, had its first flight in 1964 and remained in service with the U.S. Air Force until 1998, when it was replaced gradually by advances in satellite technology. In total, 32 airframes were produced with more than 11,000 mission hours. During the month of May in 1960, an American U-2 spy aircraft was shot down when it was in Russian territory taking photos from above. The United States government initially claimed that it was a lost weather research aircraft. However, this explanation quickly crumbled as the Soviet authorities made public photographs of the captive pilot and the surveillance equipment on the plane. The incident had direct political consequences for the Cold War, and it highlighted the necessity for a new type of spy aircraft for the U.S. Air Force that could fly higher and faster while remaining safe from anti-aircraft attacks. The Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, desired an aircraft that could travel at great speeds while remaining undetected by radar at altitudes of approximately 90,000 feet. The responsibility of creating such an ambitious aircraft was given to Clarence Kelly Johnson, who is considered to be one of the best aircraft designers in the world, and to the top-secret engineering section of Lockheed that Johnson led, which is known as Skunk Works. Everything has to be created from scratch. Every single item, said Johnson. The very first member of the Blackbird family was an aircraft known as the A-12, and it successfully completed its first test flight on April 30th, 1962. The Central Intelligence Agency conducted a top-secret restricted access operation that resulted in the production of a total of 13 A-12s. The A-12 quickly developed into a variant that was intended to be flown as a form of fighter aircraft instead of being built as a surveillance aircraft. In reality, this meant installing anti-aircraft missiles as well as a second cockpit so that a member of the crew could operate the required radar equipment. The YF-12 was the title given to this new aircraft, which, with the exception of the nose, was an exact replica of the A-12. A total of 3 YF-12s were produced and operated by the U.S. Air Force. A third model, known as the M21, was manufactured, which included a pylon on its back for attaching and deploying one of the earliest forms of unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones. 2 were constructed, but the program was terminated in 1966 after a collision between a drone and its mothership resulted in the death of one of the pilots. The SR-71, which stood for Strategic Reconnaissance and was the ultimate modification of the A-12, had its maiden flight on December 22, 1964. It featured a twin cockpit and a higher fuel capacity than its predecessor. This is the variant that would go on to conduct intelligence operations for the United States Air Force for almost 30 years, and a total of 32 were manufactured, bringing the total number of aircraft in the Blackbird family to 50 in total. Due to the fact that the aircraft was intended to travel at speeds greater than 2,000 miles per hour, the friction with the atmosphere around it would cause the fuselage to become so hot that it would melt a normal airframe. Titanium, a metal that can endure extreme heat while also being much lighter than steel, was chosen to be the material used to construct the aircraft. Using titanium, on the other hand, offered different challenges. Because normal steel tools broke the brittle titanium when they came into contact with it, it was necessary to first construct an entirely new set of tools also made of titanium. Second, there were difficulties in obtaining the metal itself. At the time, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was the world's leading supplier of titanium. The United States government was forced to make a significant purchase of that, most likely through the use of bogus companies. The first aircraft was flown with no paint at all, revealing a titanium skin that was silver in color. After it was released in 1964 that black paint, which effectively absorbs and emits heat, would assist in lowering the temperature of the entire airframe, they were initially painted black for the first time. Because the fuselage of the SR-71 was constructed with some of the very first composite materials ever utilized in an airplane, it was more difficult for enemy radar to pick up on the location of the aircraft. Even before the concept of stealth was introduced, it exhibited stealth-like capabilities. The Blackbird was able to penetrate enemy airspace virtually unnoticed, since it flew at a higher altitude than the range of anti-aircraft fire, which was quicker than a missile, and was hardly visible to radar. The plan was that by the time the enemy discovered it and launched their missile, it would already be well on its way out of the system. As a result of this, not a single Blackbird was ever brought down by enemy fire. However, it had a close encounter with a meteor in North Korea in the 1980s. Another close encounter happened when the SR-71 entered the Swedish airspace. A Swedish pilot by the name of Per-Olof Eld was flying a Viggen fighter jet when he successfully aligned his aircraft with the flight path of the Blackbird and even got a complete missile lock, but Eld did not shoot, and the two planes ended up just crossing each other's tracks as they flew by. However, there were problems with its reliability, and 12 out of 32 of them were destroyed in accidents. In addition to this, the plane was difficult to operate and fly. In order to get the airplane ready to fly, it took an army of personnel. Because there was such an incredible amount of preparation involved in getting the crew as well as the vehicle ready, a Blackbird operational mission essentially had a countdown as a space mission did. Because of the severe environmental factors that are present at high altitudes, the pilots also had to wear specialized clothing. They wore something that was essentially a spacesuit, the same kind of outfit that later generations of astronauts on space shuttles would wear. When traveling at high speeds, the cockpit also became exceedingly hot. In fact, the temperature was so high that pilots used to heat their meals by holding them against the window during long flights. Although no Blackbirds were ever flown over Soviet airspace, which is something the United States government stopped doing entirely after the incident that occurred in 1960, they still played an important role in the Cold War and performed missions in other critical theaters such as the Middle East, Vietnam, and North Korea. The SR-71 set a record for both the highest speed and maximum altitude attained by an aircraft in the year 1976 and still retains that record today, as it flew at a constant altitude of 85,069 feet and hit a maximum speed of 2,193.2 miles per hour, also known as Mach 3.3. Once technologies such as spy satellites and UAVs, or unmanned aerial vehicles or drones, became more viable and allowed quick access to surveillance data, the program was terminated in the year 1990, with a brief resurrection occurring in the mid-90s. In 1999, NASA completed its final flight of an SR-71 aircraft, which had been employed by the organization since the 1960s for high-altitude and high-speed aeronautical research. Since that time, all of the surviving Blackbirds have been donated to various museums across the United States of America. The SR-71 Blackbird is likely one of the most famous icons associated with the Cold War, and it is, without a doubt, one of the most remarkable examples of engineering achievement during that time period. Do you think the Blackbird is the greatest spy aircraft ever built? If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for everyday military updates. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below. Thanks for watching.